Every female animal on Earth, almost without exception, can have babies right up until the day she dies. A mouse, a dog, a chimpanzee, they stay fertile to the very end of life. But human women are one of a tiny handful of exceptions. Around the age of 50, the ability to have children switches off completely, and then life keeps going, often for another 30 or 40 years. Stop and notice how strange that is. Evolution really only cares about one thing: passing on genes. By that logic, a body should reproduce for as long as it possibly can. So why would natural selection build a woman who spends decades alive, healthy, and deliberately unable to have children? Those are decades of life with the reproduction switched off. On the surface, it makes no evolutionary sense at all. The easy answer is that the machine simply wears out. Maybe the ovaries just run out of eggs, and menopause is an accident of living longer than our bodies were built for. It is a tidy story. It is also probably wrong. Menopause is not a modern invention. It shows up in communities with no hospitals and no medicine. Women have been living long past 50 all through human history. The end of fertility arrives reliably, decades before the end of life. That is not a body breaking down. That looks like a schedule. So scientists went looking for a reason a woman would actually gain by stopping early. And the leading answer has a name you would not expect: the grandmother. Here is the idea. A woman who keeps having her own babies deep into old age takes a bigger and bigger risk each time for fewer and fewer years of payoff. But a woman who stops can pour all of that energy somewhere else, into her grandchildren. She can gather food, carry knowledge, and help raise the children her own children are having. And that help is not small. A grandmother who feeds and protects her grandchildren lets her daughter have the next baby sooner, and the next after that. More grandchildren survive, and every single one of them carries a quarter of the grandmother's genes. By stepping back from having children herself, she can actually end up spreading more of her genes, not fewer. This is the grandmother hypothesis, and the evidence behind it is real. In old church and census records from places like Finland and Canada, children with a living, nearby grandmother were measurably more likely to survive. Among the Hadza, a modern foraging people, older women spend their days digging up roots and tubers, and that food goes straight into feeding their weaned grandchildren. The grandmother is not a spare part. She is a food supply and a library. And then there is the strangest clue of all. Humans are not completely alone in this. A few whales do it too. Orcas and short-finned pilot whales also go through menopause, stopping reproduction long before they die. And in orcapods, the old females become the leaders. A grandmother orca remembers where the salmon are in a year when food is scarce, knowledge built over decades, and she leads the whole family there. Pods with a living grandmother survive hard years better. When she dies, her grandchildren are more likely to die in the seasons that follow. It is the same pattern as us, a long-lived elder whose value is not having more babies, but knowing things. That points at why it might be women specifically and not men. A man can father children late in life at almost no cost. A woman's investment in each single child is enormous. And there is another twist. In a family, an older woman and her son's young wife can end up competing to raise babies at the very same time, pulling at the same food and help. Studies suggest that when the generations overlap like that, everyone does better if the older one steps back and assists instead of competes. So menopause starts to look less like a failure and more like a feature, a handover, the point where a human female stops being a mother and becomes something our species may lean on just as heavily: a grandmother, a keeper of knowledge and food and memory for the generation after next. It is even possible this is part of why humans live so long and cooperate so deeply in the first place. The decades after fertility were never wasted time. They may have been one of our species' quiet secret weapons. The women who stopped having children might be an overlooked reason that humans took over the planet at all. So the next time someone talks about menopause like it is simply an ending, remember the other story. It may be one of the most powerful survival strategies our species ever stumbled into, a reason to live long and a reason to help. If you like ideas that flip something familiar on its head, stick around.